prisoners that were around, just addressed us and told us the war was concluded, and to stay in our camp and you'd be coming home, getting home, transported home soon. So that was that. And then we knew officially that the war was over, and then of course the B-29s came over, eventually dropped us with food. Somehow or other, it's a little bit story different to what Jack has said in his story, but I haven't told him that, I wouldn't. He went down to a car park somewhere near the mine that he knew was there, and he pinched a truck out of the car park. And he reckons in his book that he had a Japanese soldier with him with a rifle and took it off him, and the Jap got in there too with him. He came back to camp anyway, and I, for some reason or other, I was picked up by Jack who told me he was going into Moji to get some beer for the camp.
Into Moji? That's a long way away.
I didn't know how long it was, where it was myself. I got there in the middle of the night.
Yes.
I had no idea where Moji was.
Yes.
But he got this truck, and he reckons in his book that he had a Jap soldier in the front cabin with him. I was on the back with another Perth survivor who was Freddie Spicer, a signalman off the Perth, myself, and a couple of army blokes. I don't remember their names. And we eventually got to Moji. Now, how he got to Moji, whether the Jap told him how to get there, I don't know. I don't remember seeing the Jap in the front seat of the truck. But he could have been there, I don't know. But anyway, we got to the gates of the brewery, and there was half a dozen Jap civilians standing there. And they must have indicated, you know, what the hell are we doing there? And we told him we wanted some beer. And they told us we couldn't go in. But then Freddie Spicer, by agreement with the rest of us, he was dressed in an American uniform by this time, as we were all pretty well dressed by this time. And he got out in his voice of authority and said, "Righto boys, get out, get the beer." And the Jap stood aside, and we went into the brewery and we loaded it up. And even after a while the Jap started to help us load it up. And we put a quantity of beer, you know, cases of liquor in the damn truck, and we headed off back to camp. And that night in camp, everyone that wanted to drink a beer could have a drink of beer. By this time most of us were on Phenabarb, which was a sedative which had come down from the parachutes. And this little Dutch doctor didn't know what they were. And he had handing them hands to us, you know, as a sleeping pill. And they were. And we were all getting around like zombies. How we ever got to Moji, I really don't know. I don't know. But with the beer on top of it, we were in a pretty poor state.
Yes.
You know. I didn't drink very much, but I know I had some, and I know I was a little bit woozy. But those that drank a lot were quite drunk. And the night that we came back, we had a typhoon hit the camp, and a lot of our livestock that we'd pinched from the countryside, we'd had harnessed in little corrals behind our each little hut. And they all got blown over, and all the wildlife that we'd caught had gone bush. We didn't worry about it. By this time we had plenty of food anyway.
Now from your camp, you were not aware of the bomb occurring in Nagasaki?
No,
I mean, you weren't anywhere near it?
No, we were out of sight and out of sound, I would think. Buzzavie's camp, some of the people who were there, reckoned they were conscious of this thumping, you know, big
Well, he was
explosion.
He was in a Mutter Camp 17.
He was in Camp 17.
Yeah. Well, that was much closer.
Was it? I don't know, but it must have been.
Yes.
Because some in their camp did say they'd heard this noise.
Yes.
They had no idea what. They even saw the cloud of smoke.
Yes.
But they didn't know what it was.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I must say I never heard it or saw it or anything. I might have been down the mine that day.
Yes.
I don't know.
So the war's over. How long did it take you to get home?
I didn't leave the Camp 22 until about mid-September. I was about there about 5 or 6 weeks before they started to transport us back to Moji by train. At Moji, the Red Cross, American Red Cross met us and the Army, and they sterilised us all more or less by DDT and baths, and threw away all the clothing that we had. Even this new stuff that had been dropped to us by plane, they just throw it all in the bin. And they issued us with more clothing, and I ended up with Australian Army slacks and shirt. I was given 2 pair of pants and 2 shirts and a slouch hat. And we were then, after getting us cleaned up, they put us onto an American ship. It was a American aircraft carrier, only one of these Liberty boats that have been converted, so it wasn't a big one. They treated us very well, and we headed for Manila. We eventually ended up in Manila early October, I think it was. It might have been very late September. And I was there for about 3 or 4 weeks too, or 3 weeks at least, before getting put on board the HMS Speaker, a British aircraft carrier, and transported to Sydney. I eventually got to Sydney, I think it was around about the 19th or 20th of October. And I eventually arrived home by transport DC-3 from Melbourne, via Adelaide to Kalgoorlie, back to Guildford, on the 21st of October, 22nd of October.
So now just tell me that about this DC-3 flight. You'd gone from Sydney down to Melbourne by train, had you?
I went from Sydney to Melbourne by train.
Yeah, and then you're on DC-3 from there.
DC-3 from Melbourne, had to stop for fuel at Adelaide. We got there in the afternoon. I met some friends there, I didn't even know them, but they met me. How they knew I was there, I don't know. But they took me to their home and gave me a meal. And then they brought me back to the airport by midnight, in time to go off in the morning on the DC-3. Stopped halfway, I think, at Forest for fuel. And then we went on to Kalgoorlie for fuel again.
So how many days did it take you to fly from Melbourne to Perth?
It would have been, well, we left Melbourne, stayed more or less overnight in Adelaide. So it would have been on the 3rd day by the time we got to Guildford.
And where were you kept till you were discharged?
I came home on a Sunday, I think it was, no, on a Saturday, Friday or Saturday, I forget. But on the Monday I got a phone call from Hollywood Hospital, say there'll be an ambulance picking you up this morning, which was Monday, take me into hospital. And they tested me there for hookworm. They treated me for dermatitis and took blood tests of me for malaria, I think, I suppose. And then they sent me home. I don't think I was kept overnight. I don't think I was. I was sent home by ambulance, and I stayed at home then until for a few days or more. And in the interim, I'd gone down to HMAS Lewin. I was issued with clothing tickets, coupons, food coupons, and a leave pass for a fortnight. During that fortnight, I got another call from Hollywood Hospital to go into hospital. And I was admitted to Hollywood, and I was there for about 5 days, I think, getting treated for dermatitis, which I had behind my knees. And they gave me the pump for hookworm, and they probably knew the results of my blood test by then, but they ended up, I found out that I had unconfirmed malaria in my blood. Apart from the hookworm and the dermatitis, I was A1, according to them. And we stayed, went back to Lewin, and between that time, which was October, and May the following year, I was on a fortnight leave pay all the time from Lewin, getting more coupons and more that sort of thing. I got issued with a Navy uniform from Lewin, and I was discharged in May 1946, would have been, from the Navy. And that's after that I started civilian. I went back to my work with Winnebago Motor Company, who were my employers when I left to go join the Navy.